Starting from scratch with a single move, the world is shrouded in ruins. Coincidentally, he did not cross into a silly pillar in a courtyard filled with birds, but he still lived in dire straits and became his neighbor. However, due to the failed attempt at marriage, he was despised by everyone. Let's see how I beat up everyone in the courtyard. Embark on a happy and moderately prosperous life. Keywords of the novel. Siheyuan. I am the neighbor of silly Zhu without pop-ups, Siheyuan. I am the neighbor of silly Zhu. Download the complete text, Siheyuan. I am the neighbor of silly Zhu. Latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. Gratitude for not getting married. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Gratitude for not getting married. Capital. The winter breeze fills the heart for 10 miles. The blue rubble is covered with white snow, and the red walls are covered with slogans, which are very distinctive of the times. Su Dongqing wrapped herself in an old cotton jacket and anxiously walked towards the courtyard. The main issue was that the old cotton jacket was slightly leaking, making him shiver with cold. In the blink of an eye, he had been in this world for several years. That's right, it's the world of birds full of 4 courtyards that was scolded for flying. At the beginning, he was still a bit uncomfortable, afraid of being dressed as a hypocritical fool, so he could only be sucked. However, when he adapted to this body, he realized that it was not, but another passerby armor. A background board that is not worthy of any scenes. Su Dongqing is a lonely family, with his parents passing away early and no relatives or friends. Anyway, he hasn't seen any relatives or friends come to his house in the past few years. Almost like a state of social death. As for the reason, I'm afraid it's related to his whimsical thoughts. I don't know if it's a prank from heaven or something. When he was traveling, Qin Huairu had not yet married Lao Jia, a father without a specific name. Influenced by TV dramas, although he didn't like Qin Huairu's character, she was indeed a good daughter. In law. She showed filial piety to her in-laws and raised children. Although she was a bit selfish, if she became his own daughter. In law. Not bad either. Unfortunately, I didn't expect him to have another day of being despised. Qin Huairu didn't take a liking to him directly, even though he offered an extra 5 yuan dowry compared to Lao Jia, he was still rejected by others. As for the reasons, Su Dongqing thought for a long time before understanding. On the one hand, there are no parents who can help him. On the other hand, he was tricked by the matchmaker in the middle, and Jia Zhang secretly gave the matchmaker an extra yuan. He also found out by chance later. He was eliminated like this. Want to cry without tears? According to the standards of later generations, he can still be considered wealthy and handsome. There are 2 houses in the courtyard, one is 90 square meters and the other is 65 square meters, which is a few square meters more than the silly pillar's house in the front yard. As for Lao Jia's family, they are still crowded in the same room now. I don't know what the picture is. I can't figure it out. Looking at the lacquered courtyard door, Su Dongqing coldly glanced at Qin Huairu sitting on the threshold, waiting for the silly pillar to bring a boxed lunch home. Silently walked in. Dongqing, you're back. Qin Huairu stood up warmly and said hello. Su Dongqing ignored it. Glancing coldly, I stepped over the 10-inch high threshold. Quickly leave. Humph, what kind of person is that? Qin Huairu murmured a few words in a low voice and sat indignantly on the threshold. Waiting for the figure that she longed for to take advantage of. Su Dongqing breathed a sigh of relief, afraid of being entangled by Qin Huairu. The enchanting flower of the famous red star steel rolling plant easily navigates among various men, and can be said to be completely untouched. There are too many single dogs, and Qin Huairu is also a famous flower. No one wants to go up and take a bite, but so far, I don't know if anyone has succeeded. Su Dongqing maliciously raised the price due to his previous blind date with Lao Jia and Qin Huairu at the same time. causing Jia Zhang's mother and son to keep gossiping between the courtyard and their neighbors. To tarnish one's reputation. His poor popularity in the courtyard is indescribable. Social death. From the initial discomfort and depression of being excluded, to now being calm and accepting. I slowly accepted it. Anyway, they are all a group of beasts, vampires. There is no good person, why care about them? That's good, don't disturb each other. He had originally thought about moving and had found some connections, but he found nothing. A year ago, Lao Jia had an accident, but he didn't die, so he barely breathed a sigh of relief. Becoming a paralyzed useless person in bed. Now two people have a son and a daughter, a boy named Bongganer and a girl named Ziowewa. As for the third child, it's probably not far away either. Due to Lao Jia's paralysis, Qin Huairu reluctantly took over his position as an apprentice at the Red Star steel rolling plant. The entire quadrangle, that is, Su Dongqing, did not provide any relief to the Jia family. The relationship has become too strained, and the Jia family's mother and son have tarnished Su Dongqing's reputation. They are still single dogs now, and even if they have money to feed their dogs, it is impossible to give them a family. Su Dongqing has not yet stepped into the backyard. I can hear Silly Zhu's loud voice from afar. The snowflake on the crooked neck in the shaken courtyard fell with a clatter. Qin Jie, these are the 2 lunch boxes I brought back from the kitchen. Hurry up and take them home to eat, otherwise it will be cold. Qin Huairu was slightly shy, and her eyes were complex as she secretly glanced at Su Dongqing, whose figure was gradually disappearing in the distance. Thank you, Silly Zhu, for bringing lunch boxes to our house every day. Silly Zhu quietly touched Qin Huairu's hand and pretended not to pay attention, saying, "What's wrong? Your family is in trouble. As a neighbor, how can I not help?" I glanced at Su Dongqing's disappearing figure from a distance and deliberately shouted loudly. Unlike some people who have such high salaries and no human touch. Su Dongqing stopped and glanced at the front yard. Someone poked me in the spine again. Shake your head. You silly pillar is greedy for Qin Huairu's beauty, pretending to be reserved, and even morally kidnapping him. That is to say, you can't afford to have the same view as silly pillar, saying a few words without pain or itching. Don't even think about taking a step forward. Otherwise, you would think I'm a soft persimmon. Take out the key, open the door, and close the door latch from inside. Qin Huairu calmly withdrew her hand. Silly pillar, Qin Jie has gone back. Qin Huairu smiled, revealing 2 slight dimples that made Silly Zhu look a bit obsessed. Silly Zhu enthusiastically returned to his deserted home. He crawled directly into his own bed, mainly because the room was too cold. Although the honeycomb coal was burning, he didn't dare to burn it too much. There's no money left. Su Dongqing took off her tattered cotton jacket, boiled water, and sat swayingly on the sofa, crossing her legs. Waiting for the water to boil. In this era, pork cost 70 cents per kilogram, eggs cost 5 cents per kilogram, and flour costs 10 cents per kilogram. Su Dongqing's salary seems to be able to make a lot of money every day, but in reality, it's not like that. He needs tickets for everything he buys, tickets for rice and noodles, tickets for sugar, and not to mention, 3 bricks and 1 sound. Many things are not something that money can buy. And Su Dongqing's monthly quota is only 30 kilograms of grain, and there are also 3 kilograms of edible oil. This amount of grain is not enough for him as an adult. No oil or water, nothing tastes like eating. He also goes to the pigeon market every now and then to buy some meat and daily necessities. Over the years, I have also saved a lot of money. Of course, he also has one of the biggest secrets of the traveler, which is a football field-sized space with constant temperature throughout the year, similar to a greenhouse, not very large, and there is also a pond the size of a football field. I don't know if it's God's compensation for him. Chat to comfort him in his difficult life. Over the years, I have become a farmer once again, relying on my own hands to farm, raise fish, and raise chicks. As for pigs, he also wants to raise them. Unfortunately, the space is a bit small and I often sneak into the vegetable garden, so I have no choice but to give up. Su Dongqing's evaluation consists of 2 words. Chicken ribs. If Qin Huairu said she didn't regret it in her heart, Su Dongqing wouldn't believe it even if she died. Every time she saw her gaze, there was always something to say, but Su Dongqing ignored her. As for the Jia Zhang family, at this point, Lao Jia was paralyzed at home, and his heart seemed to gradually become twisted. Every now and then, he could hear the noise. Disturbing the neighbors in all directions, there is no peace. Lao Jia is even more cautious, as if everyone seems to be interested in Qin Huairu. He often quarrels with silly Zhu, and Jia Zhang is a shrew. Pick up the bowl to eat, put down the bowl to curse. I always ate the boxed lunch brought back by silly Zhu in the first second, and the next second, I lifted the door curtain towards the direction of silly Zhu's house. Damn it! The neighbors around me couldn't bear to look down, and I also advised them. Causing a wave of white eyes. Silly Zhu once made a move not to relieve their family. After all, how could a young man with strong willpower endure such insults? I don't know what methods Qin Huairu used. Let silly Pillar change his mind again. Continue to be sucked. Due to Jia Zhang's repeated rude remarks, silly Zhu and Qin Huairu kept a distance. Of course, when he could take advantage of the situation, silly Zhu still wanted to touch those hands. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. The smelling meat fragrance causes curse. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. The smelling meat fragrance causes curse. Intermediate court. Jia Zhang sat at the doorstep, holding insoles and his eyes scanning Qin Huairu's figure from time to time, as if afraid that she would have any contact with silly Zhu. Su Dongqing took out 5 or 6 eggs from the chicken-like space, pulled out 2 tomatoes, and an old hen, cutting vegetables directly on the chopping board. Stewed chicken. Hot pot of rice. Doing the work of a fitter is really exhausting. Looking back, my limbs were not diligent. Think about now. A scent of stewed chicken wafts through the window in every house in the courtyard. Nima, Su Dongqing's grandson, is stewing chicken at home again. Lao Jia angrily patted the bed and leaned against the wall, feeling helpless. Qin Huairu made a swallowing gesture for Lao Jia to see. A burst of regret said, Qin Huairu, are you regretting again? You didn't choose Su Dongqing back then, but chose our family. The words haven't finished yet. A chicken feather duster was thrown directly onto Qin Huairu's body, and Jia Zhang stared at the morning star in front of her with a resentful expression. Don't give Qin Huairu a good face. It seems that Jia's father's fate was all caused by Qin Huairu. Su Dongqing, he deserves to be extinct. He's hiding alone in the house, enjoying delicious food and spicy food, and doesn't know how to help our family. Jia Zhang gritted her teeth fiercely. The needle and thread in my hand pierced fiercely through the insole, as if venting my hatred. Lu Hai Zhong Jia. The second ant held her rice bowl and drifted towards Su Dongqing's house through the window, occasionally drifting aimlessly. Su Dongqing has been secretly hiding at home eating meat again, sighed the second uncle. They are single, one person is full, and the whole family is not hungry, let alone being a third-level welder in a steel rolling mill. They can't spend all their money even if they eat like the sky. Lu Guangfu and his 2 brothers were jealous and worked hard. Lu Haizhong looked at the scrambled eggs, pickled vegetables, and stir-fried cabbage on the table, and instantly felt that they were not fragrant. Chopsticks slammed fiercely on the table, then turned around and fell asleep. Lu Guangtian looked at the remaining half of the egg on the table, eager to put it into his bowl, but was knocked onto the plate by the second ant with a chopstick. If you want to eat, go buy it yourself. Leave this half piece for your dad to eat tomorrow morning. Second aunt brought the plate containing half an egg into the kitchen. Hey! Different people have different destinies, and they are both sons. Why is there such a big difference? Lu Guangtian reluctantly bit the steamed bun in his hand. You're saying it again. Lu Haizhong suddenly turned around and stared at Lu Guangtian. Lu Guangtian dared not speak. He ate his steamed buns with promise, lowered his head, and dared not look into the eyes of Lu Haizhong. Humph. Qin Huairu sat weakly on the table, carefully feeding the little locust flour and drinking millet porridge. Grandma, I also want to eat meat, Bang Ji cried and patted Jia Zhang's pants legs, shaking her busy arms. Qin Huairu quickly brought back the boxed lunch from the silly pillar, picked out the diced meat, and placed it in the bowl of the stick stem. Well behaved, stick meme, there's also meat in your bowl. Bang Jenner covered her face and glanced at it twice, quickly picked it up and took 2 bites. The bowl mouthed that bottoms out instantly. I suddenly felt a little unhappy. Mom, I still want to eat. Qin Huairu gave Jia Zhang a bitter glance. Silent decline. The boxed lunch brought back by silly pillar is only a few small diced meat, how can there be so much meat? Listening to Jia and Zhang's complaints, Qin Huairu looked helplessly at Jia's father, who was lying on the bed. She shook her head with a bitter smile and asked why the Jia family had no contact with Su Dongqing due to their old age. Even if she wanted to improve the relationship between the two families multiple times, Su Dongqing looked at her coldly. Isn't it all your fault? Now Su Dongqing is also quite old and not even a door-to-door matchmaker. Why? It's not that his reputation is bad, not only because he's being ostracized by every household in the courtyard, but also because there are many people in the factory who criticize him. People who died indirectly in society. I still look forward to receiving help from the Jia family. How big is your mind here? Now watching Su Dongqing eat delicious food and drink spicy food, her childhood is getting better and better. Qin Huairu feels even more regretful in her heart. After marrying into the Jia family, she hasn't had a good life for a few days. The fine grain is tight on Jia's father, old lady, and children. Often, when it comes to her mouth, there is only some coarse grain left, and sometimes she can't even eat enough coarse grain. Su Dongqing's life is like a bachelor's life. Look at this age, he doesn't even have a matchmaker, he has a desperate life. Jia's face was gloomy. Jia Zhang echoed. Jia Zhang looked at Qin Huairu with a gloomy expression, like dark clouds covering her head. It's all your fault, you broom. Marrying you, let's see what kind of harm you've done to my son. She was about to pick up the needle and prick Qin Huairu's hand. She skillfully avoided it. You dare to hide. A proper Rome mama is still alive. Qin Huairu's face showed grievances and resentment. I originally thought that marrying into the city would bring happiness, but I didn't expect to meet such an unreasonable family, which would be better than her days in the countryside. Silly Zhu hid under the bed, listening to Qin Huairu's crying from across the door, with a furrowed brow. Qin Huairu held a very important position in his heart, and he tried several times to get up and rescue Qin Huairu from the sea of suffering. After thinking about it. A weak and tightly wrapped quilt that leaks air. The wind tonight is particularly cold. Amidst murmuring, the eyebrows furrowed even more tightly. Qin Jie is such a good person. She was constantly bullied by their family like this. How can she be saved from the sea of suffering? Tossing and turning. An old man named Yi Zhonghai knocked on the door of the silly pillar's house. Yi Zhonghai is a highly respected gentleman in the courtyard. He enjoys moral coercion and always makes a fair expression, but in reality, he always leans towards one person. As I get older, my mental strength gradually declines compared to before. So far, there are no children, and they rely on one elderly woman and 2 others for their livelihood, commonly known as a single household. Retirement is a big mountain weighing on their hearts. I am constantly searching for someone to take care of them. Previously, I thought the Qinhuairu family was good and hoped that Lao Jia would provide them with retirement, but since Lao Jia was paralyzed in bed, I haven't mentioned it again. Place hope on silly Zhu. As for Su Dongqing, it's not without thinking about it, but looking back at these years, the whole hospital has been isolating Su Dongqing. Previously, for the marriage of Qinhuairu and Lao Jia, Su Dongqing was also offended to death, and gradually extinguished the symptoms in his heart. Silly Zhu stood up unsteadily, rubbed the cold on his hands, and opened the door. "Grandpa, what's up with you?" Silly Zhu was a bit puzzled. Previously, an old man did not show any concern for him. "I see you gave all the lunch boxes you brought back from the cafeteria to Qinhuairu. You haven't had your meal yet, your aunt made dumplings. Let's go to my house tonight to eat." Silly Zhu nodded happily. Every time the lunchbox brought back from the cafeteria was taken directly by Qinhuairu. He is also very difficult. On the one hand, he cannot bear to part with Qinhuairu's shy face, and on the other hand, he wants to have closer ideas with her. "I can only go hungry." Dressed up and following an old man out, a bulky old lady suddenly walked past the front yard. "Grandpa, who is that? Why haven't you seen it before?" Silly Zhu looked curious. "The matchmaker at the entrance of the alley. I don't know who the matchmaker is in the yard this time." "Ah!" Silly Zhu exclaimed in surprise. "I am still a bachelor." "That old man, could you tell the matchmaker to find me a blind date too?" "Don't worry, wait a few days, I'll talk to her for you." An old man guaranteed the ticket. Watching the matchmaker pass through the middle courtyard and head straight towards the backyard. Who is this matchmaker going to propose a marriage to? Silly Zhu frowned. There are only a few bachelors in the courtyard. Su Dongqing, Su Damao, Silly Zhu, Lu Guangtian brothers, Yan Jiqing one hand can say it. Is there another person who takes the lead? That old man, who is this matchmaking for? Silly Zhu was a bit uncertain for a moment, but it must not be Su Dongqing, that bastard who has been at odds with Qin Jia and has had bad relationships with people in the courtyard. If such people can all get married. That's just unreasonable. The old man glanced at the silly pillar and knew the boy's thoughts. Don't worry, it could be Su Damao or Yan Jiqing. Su Dongqing's reputation is not good, there is no girl from any family willing to marry him. Hee hee. Silly Zhu sneered. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Bullying people too much. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Bullying people too much, this is best. Su Dongqing ate chicken legs and curiously glanced at them. Through the window, she saw unfamiliar figures and walked into Su Damao's home. Suddenly unaware. Sweep the snow in front of your door, and eat chicken legs at night. If you have another bottle of 1982 cola, it's the best match. Pooh. It's only the 1960s now, where did the 1982 cola come from? Isn't this chicken rib space like having a check.in system? How could various tickets, gold, and big reunions be sold out? He's rare. Su Damao, who's eating meat in your yard? It's so fragrant. The matchmaker sat across from Su Damao, familiar with the air, sniffing the fragrance. Who else can there be? Auntie, Su Dongqing from across the street, an old bachelor who can eat alone, and the whole family is not hungry. Su Damao took the opportunity to scoop out a bowl of noodles for the matchmaker. Placed in front of the matchmaker. Auntie, eat noodles. He is. The matchmaker frowned and sighed. What's wrong with Su Dongqing? Su Damao deliberately inquired. My reputation is too bad. I was arguing with someone in your yard for a wife back then. Is it the Jia family? Su Damao let out a sigh. Who would have expected such a result? Not to mention him, I have found a good partner for you. You need to have a good appearance, a good figure, and good family conditions. Are you interested? So good. Su Damao's eyes lit up. I wish I could confess to the matchmaker as my own mother. Of course, would you like to schedule a meeting? If you miss this village, you won't have this shop anymore. The matchmaker spoke with a heavy heart and said with a long heart. See you, definitely see you. Su Damao nodded, his heart burning with enthusiasm. Su Damao's spring was also coming. In this era, blind dates are very simple. If you like them, you can go to one place directly. If you don't like them, you can go to another house. In short, it takes a few days to obtain a certificate. If it grows for a month or so, if it grows a bit longer, it may be a blow. After eating full, the matchmaker happily reminded Su Damao a few words before leaving. Su Damao, inexplicably excited, raised his middle finger towards Su Dongqing's room. Taking a provocative glance, Su Dongqing walked into the room with her eyebrows gnawing on her chicken legs, swaying and swaying. Silent all night, Su Dongqing woke up early. After tidying up, he walked out with cheerful little steps. Qin Huairu walked out of the room and smiled slightly at Su Dongqing. The cold and eerie voice of Jia Zhang came from behind. Qin Huairu, give me some responsibility. You are the daughter-in-law of my Jia family. Also, don't associate with unclean people, you know. Especially Su Dongqing. Su Dongqing stopped his steps. Glancing at Jia Zhang standing at the door. My eyes turned cold. Old man, I deserve my son's broken leg from being smashed. What are you saying? If you have the ability, say it again. Jia Zhang picked up a feather duster and was about to throw it at Su Dongqing. Su Dongqing let out a cold snort. If it weren't for your family ruining my reputation, I deserve it for being like this. Su Dongqing looked at the time and felt that it was better to leave quickly, otherwise she would be late. Kid, don't run. Jia Zhang glared angrily at Su Dongqing as she walked into the corner, slapping the wall with anger. Qin Huairu didn't pay much attention to this scene. She didn't know how many times she had experienced it, whether it was strange or not. Hurry up and run towards the direction of the steel rolling mill. Qin Huairu, are you rushing to reincarnate? Let's chase Su Dongqing and walk slowly, Jia Zhang shouted. Neurosis. Qin Huairu secretly sneered to herself. Mom, if you're not in a hurry, you'll be late, but you'll be charged. Qin Huairu turned around and stared anxiously at Jia Zhang. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and go, Jia Zhang roared. Urgent passage. Hee hee. Qin Huairu sneered, saying that it was you who said everything and made it impossible for people to live. In no time, Qin Huairu caught up with Su Dongqing's footsteps. Su Dongqing. Good morning. Qin Huairu smiled and patted Su Dongqing's shoulder. However, Su Dongqing ignored Qin Huairu. The person who can make Qin Huairu take the initiative to say hello has never been sucked by her blood, although it is not as reckless as later, daring to joke with Su Damao casually, and making seemingly crazy promises. That's because Lao Jia is still alive. Although he is paralyzed at home and in the factory, he still pays a little attention to his reputation. When he leaves, Qin Huairu will probably be even more determined. If Jia Zhang is a mischievous and stubborn old lady, besides gossiping, Qin Huairu is a senior expert in male psychology. I have a clear understanding of men's dirty thoughts. Otherwise, how could one spend their flying eyes recklessly without getting any leaves on them? At the steel rolling mill, he had not heard of many people before, so he could really benefit from her. As for silly Zhu, is he really a fool? He's not stupid, but in his heart, it's Qin's sister who is always on his mind. If it weren't for him, he wouldn't have persisted for so long. Being isolated is not pitiful at all. Deep affection is also reserved for important people. If everyone wants it, it is excessive affection. Judging from the actions of silly Zhu, today Yu Haitang, tomorrow teacher ran, the day after tomorrow Qin Jingru, and Qin Huiru who caused trouble from it. That's it. Qin Huiru saw that Su Dongqing had no intention of paying attention to her, and her face was a bit awkward. In her eyes, there was a flicker of deep scheming. Her careful thinking naturally made her clear about Yemen. Why did she take the initiative to greet Su Dongqing? She really felt like she was full and had nothing to do. I'm still thinking about whether Su Dongqing can help their family. Every day, I watch Su Dongqing eat delicious food and drink spicy food. To be honest, she's envious. A person eats wawawatu every day, and sees less than one meal of meat a year. When they see meat, they will also be hungry like wolves, shining with a faint green light in the moonlight. At home, the mother and son of the Jia family stared at her like a bird in a cage, afraid that she would do anything that would insult the reputation of the family. She didn't trust the people of the Jia family and wouldn't know about the rumors and gossip of the steel rolling mill. But why does she still have to do it? Even if silly Zhu was scolded like that by their family. I still can't bear to sever ties with silly Zhu. The real reason, isn't it that I can't bear to give up my silly pillar's boxed lunch every day after returning home? It can save a lot of expenses again. If not, which diseased seedling in the family, I wonder if there is money to treat it and take medicine. Su Dongqing ignored it and instead quickened her pace. He doesn't want to be like a silly pillar, not eating meat and instead causing trouble all over. I haven't been in contact for several years, and every time I meet, it's a mutual hatred. It's even more difficult to ease the relationship. Su Dongqing is quite satisfied with her current life anyway. She has a chicken rib space and doesn't have to worry about food and drink. What else do she expect? In a few more years, it will be a disaster year. Eating steamed buns is considered good. Besides, in the quadrangle courtyard, but the whole courtyard is full of villains, and they are even mocked by the play as birds filling the quadrangle courtyard. Interacting means enduring endless bloodsucking. That's a bit of a deal. In the workshop of the Red Star steel rolling plant, busy figures flow endlessly. Su Dongqing touched his slightly sore waist. Working all morning is really tiring. Not a single task is easy. As the large army swayed, they took out their lunch boxes and lined up in the cafeteria. Window, there are only 2 or 3, a long dragon-like team, it's not easy. Since replacing Lao Jia, Qin Huiru has been working as an apprentice for almost a year now. She has no education or skills, and in short, she has not made any progress. Judging from her demeanor, it will take 3 more years to get a first-class pincer. When I was lost in thought, the long queue finally reached Su Dongqing. Looking at the repulsive face in front of her, Su Dongqing sighed. 2 mantou, a portion of shredded potatoes, and a portion of spicy cabbage. After Su Dongqing handed the money to silly Zhu. Silly pillar is like an open mouth, with a wicked smile. Like suffering from Parkinson's disease, he deeply spread a spoonful of food, shaking like a pudding, flat on the lunchbox, without even covering half of it. Compared to when the cafeteria aunties used to fight less, they were all too much. Mantou also found 2 mantou that looked smaller than other mantou and put them into the lunchbox. Su Dongqing looked coldly at silly Zhu. Clench your fist tightly. Spicy next door. Bullying people, they all end up being bullied. It's tolerable, who can't tolerate it? Behind him, a person secretly patted Su Dongqing's shoulder and said. Did you offend the foolish pillar again? If not, it wouldn't be so little. I'll make him unable to eat and walk around today. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Deduction of half-month salary. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4 Deduction of half-month salary. Su Dongqing fiercely patted the lunch box against the window of the cafeteria. Silly pillar, you can only make me a small portion of my 2 cents worth of food. Do you want to work anymore or get lost? I've been working hard in the workshop all morning, feeling tired and dizzy. Is that all I need to eat? Su Dongqing's words instantly resonated. Su Dongqing, who are you as an old man? Grandpa is just cooking like this. If you're not convinced, you can sue me. Silly Zhu threw the spoon directly into the vegetable bowl. Looking up at Su Dongqing with his nose facing upwards. A face full of contempt. Silly Zhu, I know there's someone covering you behind your back, but look at these 2 spoons of food. They can't even cover 1/3 of my lunchbox, which has ruined his heart. You just wait here. I don't believe it, no one can cure you in such a big factory. Su Dongqing let out a cold snort. Placed the lunchbox heavily in front of the window. Glancing at the long dragon behind him. Ladies and gentlemen, I know you have been deliberately cheated by the foolish pillar more than once. Instead of being controlled by others every time, it would be better to establish a rule for him that as much as he spends, he should receive as much food. If you think it doesn't matter, just let me know. Su Dongqing walked directly to the cafeteria director's office. Silly Zhu's gloomy face stared at Su Dongqing's back. Humph. Are you still fighting or not? If you're fighting, come forward and fight. If you're not fighting, just go away. Stupid Zhu, with a bad breath, stared at the people outside recklessly. Sample. You still want to rebel alone. Today, Grandpa Zhu will let you know what tyranny means. Outside the window, the people queuing up remain indifferent and motionless. They have never harbored resentment towards Silly Zhu. Among so many people, no one has been deliberately shaken by him. It is estimated that everyone in this cafeteria, except Qin Huairu, has been deliberately shaken by him. Looking out the window at the motionless crowd. Silly Zhu felt a wave of panic in his heart. I don't know what to do. This matter is both big and small. It's not worth mentioning at all. If it were placed on the table, he would still be unable to escape a burst of criticism. Feeling guilty, he picked up the lunch box from the window and was about to add 2 more spoons of food when someone outside the window snatched it away. Silly Zhu, I'm scared. I've been holding you for a long time. Brothers, none of you have been deliberately cheated by Silly Zhu. Can we let him pass like this? Cannot. The long dragon behind roared in unison. Staring coldly at the silly pillar inside the window. Make rules. Stupid and foolish, stay in place. The cafeteria director stared at Su Dongqing with a guilty expression on his face, afraid that he would be masturbated for some small matters shortly after taking office. After all, his buttocks were not particularly clean. Su Dongqing, how can we deal with the situation? Can we discuss it? Director Li of the cafeteria wiped a thin sweat from his forehead. Do you think you've been caught asking for food and drink? Director Li, it's none of your business. It's the foolish pillar in your cafeteria who bullies people too much and keeps shaking his hands. I spent 20 cents, but I didn't even fill 1/3 of the lunchbox. There's also a portion of soup. The point is, I'm not the only one. Most people in the factory receive such treatment. What do you think Director Li should do? Director Li of the cafeteria breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, it wasn't my own fault that was discovered. As for the silly pillar. Director Li of the cafeteria looked in surprise at the long dragon outside the cafeteria, with only a small number of people sitting on chairs to eat. Isn't this going to disturb him? Delayed the tasks assigned by the factory. Who can keep him? A sinister gaze gazed at the silent silly pillar inside the window. Opened Su Dongqing's lunchbox. My eyes were a bit surprised. What a great revenge it was, bullying someone so badly. If you're not satisfied with the fight, at least you can beat 2/3. In this case, Su Dongqing will also be mute and eat huanglian, with nothing to say. You can just lay a solid foundation. Even if the factory director comes, we can't keep you, can we? Silly pillar, what's wrong with you? With such a little fighting, do our workers and staff work hungry? Can they still work? If they can't, you can also give me experience in the parking lot. Director Lee of the cafeteria pointed at Silly Zhu's nose and cursed. Silly Zhu remained silent and lowered his head, pleading for mercy. Director Lee, you're right. I just slipped my hands for a while and didn't pay attention, which led to me hitting Su Dongqing brothers less. I'll make a change now. Silly Zhu gave a silly smile. Hurry up and give Su Dongqing 2 spoons of his lunchbox. Drum and drum. Su Dongqing, look at this. Director Lee of the cafeteria clearly didn't want the situation to escalate. I want to calm things down. Satisfied, but Director Lee, I hope you can set a standard for us. For example, the lunchbox in my hand costs 20 cents, how much can I fill it up, or at the bottom of the box? I'm not the only one who has encountered this kind of thing. You ask the brothers behind me, who hasn't encountered the silly pillar shaking spoon. Su Dongqing paused for a moment. Turn around and look at the long dragon behind you. None of you have met the foolish pillar who shook his spoon and stood up. Director Lee's forehead was covered in cold sweat. Is this guy, Silly Zhu, going crazy? It doesn't matter if you occasionally target 1 or 2 people, after all, they can also turn a blind eye and consider it your mistake. But when you see the long dragon from afar, there are only a few hundred or so. You are here to showcase your own abilities. The right to have a bigger butt in your hand has been played out by you. No wonder people say your mouth smells bad. Brothers, this will never happen again. In the future, when we eat, we must be full and follow this standard. Director Lee of the cafeteria picked up Su Dongqing's lunchbox and raised it above his head, letting everyone see as clearly as possible. As for Silly Zhu, considering his bad behavior, half a month's salary will be deducted directly. If there is another time, he will be directly transferred to the workshop as a frosting worker. Director Lee of the cafeteria warned coldly. Okay. Su Dongqing took the lead in applauding. Picking up the lunchbox, I found an empty place and started eating. Silly Zhu angrily patted the spoon, wanting to shake a little, but unfortunately, looking at the eager face at the window, he casually threw the big spoon into the vegetable bowl. Ma Hua, you serve them vegetables. I'm tired, take a break. Silly Zhu walked into the kitchen without looking at Su Dongqing. Su Dongqing, wait for me. We are at odds. Silly Zhu angrily picked up his kitchen knife and picked up a cabbage, chopping it up as if the cabbage was Su Dongqing. Qin Huairu stared blankly at Su Dongqing, who was eating alone in the corner. So fierce, why didn't you feel it before? Following Qin Huairu's gaze, Su Lan glanced and said, is the rabbit even biting people when it's too urgent? If Silly Zhu treats others like this, bring someone over and you can clean him up. Look, Silly Zhu will definitely not give up easily. Lu Lan cautioned carefully. Qin Huairu nodded. She naturally knew what kind of person Silly Zhu was. He had a lecherous heart but not a lecherous courage, and it was not excessive to show his teeth in retaliation. Looking at him and Su Damao in the courtyard, the two were born enemies. When it comes to fighting, it can be considered dark and dark, never overnight. However, Qin Huairu suddenly thought of something and her face changed. Silly Zhu's monthly salary was halved. What should they do? Previously, Silly Zhu had given the extra half of the money to their family. He also has a younger sister. Why does Rainwater live on campus? It also requires money and food vouchers. How to help their family if Silly Zhu's money is half less? You can't go drink the northwest wind. Qin Huairu, with a worried expression on her face, did not notice the greedy gaze of Su Damao around her. My heart is tumultuous. This is worrying about Silly Zhu. Lao Jia hasn't left yet, so he's in a hurry to remarry. Su Damao, with a devilish expression on his face, suddenly seemed to open Pandora's box. Since Silly Zhu could, did he also have the opportunity to sow discord? You can also take some interest then. Qin Huairu looked up and glanced sideways, seeing Su Dumao daydreaming. Like a pervert, staring at Qin Huairu, unwilling to leave that line of sight for a long time. Su Dumao, what are you looking at? Look at you. With a frivolous smile, Su Dumao picked up his lunchbox and sat next to Qin Huairu. Get out of here, you're bothering me. Qin Huairu snorted coldly and sat opposite Su Dumao, next to Su Lan. Qin Huairu, this is your fault. I came to offer you benefits on my own initiative. Since you don't appreciate it, I'll leave now. Su Dumao pretended to pose and watched Qin Huairu remain motionless, helplessly sitting in place. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Stick memes. Want to eat meat? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Stick memes. Want to eat meat, humph. Let's make you proud for now. When you're down, I'll make you kneel down and sing, conquer, dot. Su Dumao bit his teeth and ate a boxed lunch, feeling instantly that it was not sweet at all. Because of Qin Huairu's gaze, she kept secretly looking at Su Dongqing. Gentle and refined. Pooh. Su Dumao watched as Su Dongqing leisurely sat alone in the corner, eating quietly. There was no one around, just like the plague god, let alone the female workers in the factory. Although being single is rare, there are also some. Why not sit by Su Dongqing's side? It's not because Su Dongqing's reputation is bad and he's afraid of being implicated. Otherwise, with Su Dongqing's conditions, spring birds would have been lingering around long ago. Qin Huairu, why do you keep looking at Su Dongqing? Su Lan whispered. I dare not speak loudly, afraid that those around me will hear. After all, Qin Huairu and she are two pitiful people in the same boat at the steel rolling mill. Home has a heavy burden, and naturally receives some extra care. Su Lan, what are you talking about? Qin Huairu vehemently denied it. If it were to be spread, the evil mother-in-law at home wouldn't know how to make trouble for him, even getting a needle would be considered light. The whole martial arts scene was staged, causing a stir among the neighbors. Her reputation has been completely destroyed, who dares to help her? Who dares to find her? As for Jia Zhang, she is simply a wicked mother-in-law who doesn't understand anything. She has no virtue in her mouth and likes to take advantage of small things. He has never taken advantage of that family in the courtyard. The borrowed money has no return. A proper Pichot. For so many years, there hasn't been anyone pushing against the wall yet. It's all thanks to Qin Huairu among them, door begging for mercy. If not, who would have eaten enough to help a white-eyed wolf family? Waiting to be sucked. Just maintain this situation. The people in the courtyard were also unwilling to respond, that is, the iron and silly character of Silly Pillar, who would always touch her finger and have a happy day. If not, she wouldn't have been working hard to maintain the relationship with the Silly Pillar. Mainly other people didn't give her this opportunity either. For example, Su Dongqing. He is the only person in the quadrangle who has not been bled by her yet. He is a lonely family and is easy to deceive, but she also knows that what happened back then did make Su Dongqing feel a bit embarrassed. Ignoring her can be considered reasonable. However, Su Dongqing has fallen to the current level, and she still wants to thank Jia and Zhang for always chewing on their tongues. If not, after he gets married, his childhood will become even better. That's not about her Qin Huairu. Even with all kinds of tenderness and means, it is of no use. Now, it's not necessarily the case. Qin Huairu, along the way, she has never seen anyone who is really lascivious, and Su Dongqing is no exception. As long as she gets hold of him, he won't just let her play with him in the future. Money is hers. Food is also hers. The Jia family has two single dogs, Silly Zhu and Su Dongqing, to keep. How can they live better than those in the courtyard? Qin Huairu, why do you keep getting distracted? Su Lan, after finishing her meal, walked straight to the workshop, holding the lunchbox and twisting her swaying steps. Qin Huairu breathed a sigh of relief as she watched Su Lan leave. She is also afraid of being told her truth by Su Lan. Su Lan's family background is not comparable to hers, and she has been searching for the successor. Otherwise, the two of them would not have been able to get along so harmoniously. Do similar species attract each other? In the steel rolling plant workshop, Su Dongqing felt a bit exhausted and couldn't help but lament that people in this era are really hardworking and don't feel tired at all, but for him, this job is really exhausting. It seems that when I go back tonight, I still need to buy some pork to mend my body. He has taken good care of his waist, but it hasn't started yet. However, due to physical fatigue, it also needs to be replenished. Ding-ling-ling. The bell of the workshop coming off work is piercing. Su Dongqing threw the wrench in his hand into the box next to him, shook his body, and walked unsteadily along the alley. Looking at the others, their laughter and cheers were scattered in twos and threes, but only he felt completely lonely and cold here. He finally understood what it meant to be afraid of human words. A few years ago, he couldn't even remember it. Since the rumors were spread by Jia Zhang, it seemed that he had never had any contact with opposite-sex friends around him again. In the courtyard, there are all the animals and animals in the courtyard. Forget it. It's better to be alone than to deal with them. This is to force him to blacken out. The winding path was filled with dust, and Su Dongqing walked leisurely on it, because the Red Star steel rolling plant was far away from the courtyard, and it took almost an hour to walk in. Snatching his mouth, Su Dongqing felt a bit helpless. She really wanted a bicycle, and the shoes on her feet couldn't bear it either. Qin Huairu and Silly Zhu walked together. Su Dongqing looked at Silly Zhu all the way, smiling endlessly, with an exquisite licking dog demeanor. I still carry 2 lunchboxes in my hand. If it weren't for the concern of others on the road, it would probably have stuck together. Su Dongqing, Grandpa has taken note of today's events. Don't have any tricks on me in the future, or else I'll make it difficult for you to walk around. Silly Zhu and Qin Huairu passed by, and Su Dongqing, who was squatting on the gravel by the roadside resting, spat directly on the ground. The appearance of gritting teeth and cutting teeth. Su Dongqing looked a bit funny. Zai, silly pillar, what leverage would I have in your hands? Even a small chef would dare to challenge me without looking at your small physique. Can you handle it? Su Dongqing is too lazy to talk nonsense to him. I patted the dust off my body and wobbled into the pitch-black alley. He still needs to buy pork and pork ribs to replenish his body. There's no leisure time to argue with silly pillars here. In the evening, the supply and marketing cooperative will probably close down. Pooh. Silly Zhu's face couldn't hang. Shaking and strolling outside with Qin Huairu, Su Dumao calmly returned. Behind him, his eyes turned red and he looked contemptuously at Qin Huairu's graceful figure. Good cabbage, let the pig arch it. Why can't that person be themselves? Cough, cough. Su Dumao reminded Qin Huairu behind them. Qin Huairu, you should pay attention to the influence. If you go back late, Jia Gu may lose his temper again. Su Dumao, you're everywhere, get out of here quickly. Silly Zhu was about to take the lunchbox in his hand and pat it on Su Dumao's body. Su Dumao let out a cold snort. Qin Huairu left the silly pillar and quickly quickened her pace, walking towards the courtyard. Qin Jie, wait for me for a moment. Silly Zhu chased after her from behind. That silly pillar, please slow down. Let's not go in together, it will make people gossip. Qin Huairu turned around and warned carefully. Silly Zhu nodded helplessly. He also knew that Jia Zhang, the mother-in-law of Qin Huairu, was not easy to get along with and had always been on guard against him. I saw him walking with Qin Huairu. It was definitely another meal at night. It's almost becoming a scenic spot in a courtyard house. Su Dongqing walked happily into the courtyard with small steps, because when the supply and marketing cooperative was about to close, he bought the pork and pork ribs that he had been longing for. It's another big meal tonight. Jia Zhang, who was sitting at the door eating, squinted her small eyes and stared fixedly at the pork in Su Dongqing's hand. Swallowed saliva. She hasn't eaten meat for a long time either. Qin Huairu looked up. I also swallowed my saliva and helplessly lowered my head to eat the steamed bun in my hand. Her family is solely supported by her. Lao Jia is paralyzed in bed and relies on her to take care of food, drink, and urinate. Jia Zhang is even more stingy, guarding the coffin and refusing to take it out. She earns a monthly salary of 1,850 yuan, which means she barely makes ends meet, so that her whole family won't starve to death. She is also starving every day and only eats a piece of steamed bun at night. If you want to drink millet porridge, you can't get enough points. It's her turn, and there's only plain water left. Qin Huairu, why don't you ask Su Dongqing if you can borrow some pork to eat? It's been a long time since we've eaten pork at home. Hee hee. Qin Huairu snorted coldly. She doesn't even know that Jia Zhang has such thick skin, and doesn't she know about our relationship with Su Dongqing? The momentum is like water and fire. It's not excessive to be old and dead without interacting with each other. In the morning, I just scolded someone, and at night, I still want to borrow meat from Su Dongqing. Isn't that enough to make her take the initiative to shut the door? I won't go. Qin Huairu turned her face. Mom, stick meme, I want to eat meat. Bang Jenner struggled as she lifted the broken bowl in her hand. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Follow up on team cutting and blind date. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Follow up on team cutting and blind date. If you go, then you go. That's such a big temper. Lao Jia took out his chopsticks and smashed them onto Qin Huairu's back. A face full of resentment. A face full of helplessness. Simply put, is that how to say it? You just scolded someone in the morning. Qin Huairu suddenly felt heartbroken. This family is all some kind of evil spirit. Humph. I scolded him in the morning because everyone in the hospital has helped our family, and he's the only one who hasn't received any relief. He's such a heartless and ruthless person. I'm asking you to go now because he wants to eat. Can you go? Zhang was about to use bowls and chopsticks to beat Qin Huairu. Within the hospital. Silly Zhu looked in his eyes and felt pain in his heart, flipping his pockets vigorously. For a long time with a helpless sigh, he didn't have any money, let alone next month when his salary would be halved. He didn't even know how to live, and it was almost time for Rainwater to ask for money from him. It's so difficult. Qin Huairu reluctantly knocked on Su Dongqing's door. Su Dongqing frowned and looked at the stewed pork ribs and pork belly in the pot. Stand at the door, otherwise Qin Huairu will walk in. He doesn't want to be caught by the people in the courtyard for some small matters. Close the door. But yellow mud falls into the pocket. It's not just feces, it's also feces. Qin Huairu, what's up? Su Dongqing glanced sideways at Qin Huairu, who was drooling. That Holly, can you lend me some meat, stick stem? It's been a long time since I've eaten meat, Qin Huairu pleaded. Pear blossoms bring rain, and those who don't know think it's like Su Dongqing bullying her. Su Dongqing looked at Su Damao leaning against the window across from him, sitting in the dark, especially glaring. No, your family's meme wants to eat, just buy it for him. Su Dongqing was about to coldly close the door. Being forcibly knocked open by Qin Huairu, I don't know where she came from with such great strength. Holly. Stop it, you begged me. Why don't you take a stroll around the house of Silly Pillar and Grandpa One? Maybe I can make some money for you. Don't think about it here, unless. Qin Huairu looked at Su Dongqing in surprise. Unless for what? What do you say? What exchange do you have? Su Dongqing looked at Qin Huairu playfully. Little sample, fight with me, eat free food, and think nonsense. You. Qin Huairu trembled as she stared at Su Dongqing. Let's go. Su Dongqing made a posture of pushing the door. Qin Huairu knows you, passing through countless grasses without touching your body, is also a charming flower of the steel rolling mill. You should not waste your strength on me. Qin Huairu looked at Su Dongqing with disappointment. Su Dongqing, I misread you. You, like those stinky men, are all greedy for my beauty. Hee hee. Su Dongqing sneered and said, Qin Huairu, if you're not greedy for your body, why would you still selflessly dedicate yourself? Look at your wicked mother. In law, who has harmed me. I'm in the 20s, not even a door-to-door matchmaker. With my qualifications, not only the most beautiful cub in this alley, but also a wealthy family. Su Dongqing pushed Qin Huairu away, closed the door directly, and inserted the door latch. Qin Huairu looked at the house behind her in a daze. With a self-deprecating smile, he said, men are all virtuous. Since they have a family, I'll let you know what you can't provoke. Qin Huairu returned home empty-handed. Jia Zhang's nose is not his nose, and his face is not his face. He cursed, I know you don't have this ability. If you use the methods you used on silly Pillar's body on Su Dongqing, the family won't eat meat all at once. Hee hee. Qin Huairu let out a helpless bitter smile. Do you know Su Dongqing, who covets your daughter in law's body? He will also use the methods used on silly Pillar's body, on Su Dongqing's body. That guy is going to eat people. Of course, she dare not speak up. Our family and Su Dongqing are basically not in contact, so don't let hope fall on Su Dongqing. I let out a sigh. If Su Dongqing were as easy to deceive as a silly Pillar, she would have used all means and played around. But Su Dongqing, that bastard, is a clear horse and carriage. If you want to eat, as long as you can pay the price. Looking at Lao Jia who was bedridden, she shook her head helplessly. Forget it. Useless thing. After Lao Jia cursed a few words, he lay on his side in bed, closed his eyes, and didn't say any more. The fragrance wafting in the air, everyone's excitement. Old Yen, Su Dongqing is eating meat at home again. The three aunties took a bite of the steamed buns in their hands, always feeling uncomfortable. Money, why not spend it? Save it for who to spend it on. Third uncle drank a mouthful of baijiu mixed with water. Let out a muffled snort. On the table, Yen Jicheng cursed directly and said, I deserve it. Every day, I have a lot of fish and meat, and I don't know if I can share it with you. Hee hee. Su Dongqing, look at who in the yard has said one more sentence. When did he say one more sentence at the yard's general meeting? If he didn't want to move, he wouldn't even attend the meeting once. Yen Bugue sneered. It's not that he's selfish, otherwise he'll end up like this. Kid, you don't understand now. That wicked mother. Law of the Jia family has tarnished his reputation several times. The people in the courtyard are more inclined to help the Qin Huairu family. It wouldn't have caused this much trouble. Hee hee. That's just what he deserves. Yen Jicheng was also envious. Every day is full of fish and meat. He doesn't need to support his family, he also wants to eat. Old Yen, why don't we take the initiative to reconcile with him? What do you think? In case, if we reconcile, we can come and ask for some, it's not a bad idea, said the third aunt. Don't, never, look at the courtyard. Who doesn't envy Su Dongqing? He eats delicious food and drinks spicy food every day, but why doesn't he take the initiative to reconcile? He's also afraid of being poked in the spine. Yi Zhonghai, he wanted to reconcile with Su Dongqing a long time ago, but he hasn't retaliated yet. If you want to find a suitable elderly care candidate, the most suitable ones are Silly Zhu and Su Dongqing. But let's see how Su Dongqing does it. Yen Bugue took a bite of the slightly crispy peanuts and belched heavily. Hey, you said Su Dongqing, is this how it is in this life? He'll be a bachelor for the rest of his life, sighed the third aunt. That's not the case, good families can't find them, but it's still possible for widows and the like. After all, who doesn't have a few sons in their family? Yen Bugue squinted his small eyes and tapped the table. Don't mention it again. The third aunt thought of something before and suddenly felt a shiver. Mom, what happened before? There's something I don't know about. Yen Jiqing suddenly became interested and said curiously. It's not much, it's just the matchmaker at the entrance of the alley who introduced him to a widow with 3 children, but he directly rebuked her. Since then, no one has come to his door to propose a marriage. Hee. Su Dongqing, he still wants a daughter. Law. I don't know, Yen Jiqing whispered. I also heard the matchmaker at the entrance of the alley say that she despises someone who is old and still has 3 children, but she doesn't think about what kind of virtue he is. His reputation is in this area, and he is smelly. The third lady put on her insole and looked up at Yen Jiqing. Ho, it's normal. Su Dongqing is alone and has no worries about food and drink. Look at the yard. Even Yi Zhonghai, who earns 99 yuan a month, dare not say that he eats white flour mantou, rice and meat every day, let alone that Su Dongqing lives in this way every meal. If his reputation was not corrupted by Jia Zhang, he could not listen. I don't know how many little girls would beg to marry him. Jia Cheng, can you tell me how popular Su Dongqing is at the steel rolling mill? Not much, just a sulky gourd. I don't communicate much with people either. That's it. It seems that Su Dongqing wants to be a bachelor for a lifetime. Anyway, the money he earns is not inherited by anyone. It's better to eat and drink well and live a carefree life. If Su Dongqing had heard Yen Bugue's arrangement of himself, he would definitely have scolded him head on. What is a bachelor who wants to fight for a lifetime? It's only after he comes here that he realizes how important a person's reputation is. He can't do anything that violates the law and discipline. Previously, I just felt that blind dates were not possible. Can we switch to another one? Who hasn't encountered the situation of cutting in line for blind dates yet? End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Buying a car. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Buying a car. But I only realized in front of me that this was not the case at all. Coupled with malicious price hikes and being deliberately promoted by Jia Zhang's mouth. Adding fuel and vinegar, Su Dongqing and the heinous villain can almost be equated. Only then did I realize that what I had thought was too simple. But he's not willing to raise children for others either. Hi. Su Dongqing's mouth was dripping with oil. It's delicious, but some people feel uncomfortable. The Qinhuairu family is gloomy and gloomy. After hearing that silly Zhu was deducted half a month's salary for Su Dongqing. It's becoming increasingly unbearable. Su Dongqing, this bastard, why don't you die? If you don't help our family, it's okay. Let silly Zhu give us bad luck. The salary that silly Zhu paid less, how can we subsidize our family? He Rainwater, that loser, always comes home on time at the beginning of the month to ask for money. Jia Zhang was indignant and unjust. If you want to pick up a knife, just fight hard with Su Dongqing. It seems like everything was caused by Su Dongqing. Mom, what are you crazy about? Qinhuairu looked helpless as she tried to dissuade the impulsive old lady. I am afraid of any further mistakes. As for chopping Su Dongqing, Jia and Zhang did not suffer any losses themselves, and it can be considered as burning high incense. I went to chop him up, eating and drinking spicy food myself, but I didn't know how to help our suffering family. Stop fooling around. You're old enough to beat Su Dongqing. It's better to wait for the street office to come and fight, and then go straight to the police station and come knocking on people. So what do you say to do? Jia Zhang reluctantly put down her kitchen knife. Just now, she was also in a moment of anger. Her good life was not yet good. She went to labor reform to see her thin and weak physique, and her age was also there. Isn't this taking her life? Let me see if I can trick silly Zhu out of his money before he rainwater comes back, Qin Huairu sighed. Silly Zhu is now their family, the only support point. If she were destroyed by the old devout woman, she really wouldn't know how to survive. Saturday. The steel rolling mill does not work. Su Dongqing slept until the sun shone in the sky. When I opened the door, I saw a simple figure walking out of Su Dumao's room across from me. Lu Xiao. Despite the strong historical inertia and the unstoppable brakes, the two finally met. Lu Xiao was indeed a kind-hearted girl, but unfortunately, her whole life was ruined by Su Dumao. As for the re-cutting of the beard, Su Dongqing shook her head. On the one hand, he was a bit scared. If the same thing happened again as Qin Huairu, he could hit him dead and not stay in the courtyard anymore. On the other hand, it is indeed inappropriate. Those familiar with the plot know that there is something wrong with Lu Xiao's family, and there is still no apparent problem. But after a few years, I watched as Lu's family arrived in Xiangjiang. That's the biggest problem. Although there are also reasons why Su Dumao contributed to the situation, the main issue is still with Lu's father, who is one of the top billionaires in the capital. When he was still worried about a bicycle, let alone 3 bricks and 1 sound, Lu Xiaoye's family was a car pick up and drop off, so he chose Su Dumao as his son.in.law. Perhaps there are also considerations in this regard. Young man, he is indeed quite good-looking and cultured. As a projectionist, not everyone can do it. This is not just a matter of mutual agreement. Su Dongqing, look, this is my wife. Su Dumao arrogantly grabbed Lu Xiao's hand and gave Su Dongqing a mocking look. Hey! Silly Zhu said, you are a desperate person, and you can't lay eggs in this life. Su Dongqing snorted coldly. Backhand sold the silly pillar completely. Lu Xiao's face was cold and she stared at Su Dumao with confusion. This body, isn't it really sick? Pooh! Su Dongqing, don't spit blood out. Su Dumao was furious. Su Dongqing pinched the ear that had some tinnitus. Su Dumao, it seems you have found the wrong partner. That's not what I said. Yeah. Let you be arrogant and see if I don't give you any eye drops. As for silly Zhu, he did say that everyone in the courtyard knows it's just a joke. He didn't take it seriously. But when dreams come true. That's really interesting. Especially in his later years, I wonder if Su Dumao would recall the prophecy of the previous foolish pillar when he was in a state of decline. You wait for me, see if I'm going to settle accounts with the silly pillar. Su Dongqing shook her head indifferently. I washed my face. Walk towards the alley. He wants to buy a car. But without a bicycle ticket, it's a big problem. The money is enough, only about 100 yuan, but that bicycle ticket is also worth this price. There is still no market for this, and he also needs to be patient in searching. In any era, there is no shortage of people with lively minds. In this era, this belongs to speculative speculation. He also hesitated a bit, after all, there is not a bicycle in the courtyard yet. If he were to buy it, it would definitely be another bloody experience. After all, there are too many people with red-eye disease. I don't live well, but I don't want anyone to live better than me. The people in the courtyard were already envious, but he suddenly cooked eggs, chicken, duck, and fish, and complained a lot. Is he selectively low-key? Still low-key. Brother, do you want a ticket? From all over the world, whether it's a food ticket or an industrial ticket, I have it here. Su Dongqing frowned and looked at a strong man wrapped in a green coat, blocking Su Dongqing's path. I have some doubts. Are speculators so rampant these days? Brother, are you looking for trouble? What is speculation? It's so unpleasant to speak. The strong man in the green coat suddenly made way and turned coldly towards the corner of the alley. Wait a minute. Brother, I made a mistake. Su Dongqing quickly caught up with the strong man. After all, the scarcity of bills is relatively important for some people with connections. This is not a problem. But for Su Dongqing now, this is a big deal. The strong man in the green coat reluctantly turned back. Let out a cold snort. Judging from my friend's appearance, I want a ticket. Su Dongqing quickly nodded. I want a bicycle ticket, but I don't know if there's a way out here, buddy. Su Dongqing ultimately didn't want to choose to walk, so he understood. Yes, there is, but it doesn't look like a wealthy family when you look at your buddy's clothes, said the sturdy man with some disbelief. I used to think that the most I could do was buy some food stamps, but this time, it's probably a big fish. The smiling face of the muscular man instantly transformed. Pull Su Dongqing down to a remote alley entrance. Big brother. Don't worry, we're all about reputation. Our buddies have been selling in this alley for several years, and anyone who sees them gives them a thumbs up. If you don't believe us, you can go outside and inquire. Li Bin, the downhill tiger. Su Dongqing nodded. I have indeed heard of the name of the mountain tiger. The naming of this era is basically similar, which is a characteristic of the era. I have heard of Brother Bin's name. Well, a bicycle ticket, but it's a bit expensive. Are you sure you have the financial resources to take it? Li Bin, the downhill tiger, was curious. Bin, I am an employee of the Red Star Rolling Mill. One sentence is enough to dispel Li Bin's worries. Nowadays, workers are a very popular profession, and the rest is the issue of various tickets. Brother, I underestimated it. There are 151 bicycle tickets. Li Bin knocked on a house. Walk in casually. Su Dongqing glanced at it. A solitary courtyard is indeed good, much better than the large courtyard he lives in, and the environment is also somewhat quiet. Su Dongqing didn't bargain either. Usually, these things have a price but no market. However, ordinary people wouldn't be like Su Dongqing, who is a spendthrift with money. Some things can't be bought, but there are also some. Most of the food, chicken, duck, fish, and meat don't require tickets. If there is 150 yuan, buying some meat, isn't it delicious? After all, most of them are still struggling to get enough to eat. Sure, but I need Bin to provide me with a proof that this thing comes from the right path. Li Bin hesitated a bit. He is an intermediary who buys low and sells high. We also need to provide a certificate. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Envy, jealousy, and hate, with various flavors. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Envy, jealousy, and hate, with various flavors. Bin, I'm not being on guard against you, but against some people in our yard who are narrow-minded. As you know, a bicycle ticket is usually hard to come by. If they know that I bought a car, they can't doubt the way out for a bicycle ticket. I won't be able to argue 100 times then. Su Dongqing let out a bitter smile. It's indeed a bit difficult for Li Bin, the downhill tiger. They are an intermediary who engages in speculative buying and selling, and they need to provide you with a certificate. Crazy. I'm not sure if there's a chance for another transaction yet. This. Bin Gu, you are also from the alley, and you should know that there are some things that people can hold accountable for. I'm afraid my job will be lost because of a bicycle. I want to buy a car, but I also need to pay attention to the impact. If someone hates me, I'm afraid I won't be able to eat and walk around, so I'll keep a hand and get by perfectly. Li Bin, the downhill tiger, nodded. In this era, 3 bricks and 1 sound is a hard currency, and any girl who sees this thing will come knocking on her door. Su Dongqing was also forced to do nothing. If you want to get out of singlehood, you always have to find something eye-catching. Otherwise, it's just his reputation. Okay, I can find someone for you as proof of giving it to you. Remember, it's a gift, not a purchase, okay? Li Bin thought of a compromise. Send it. This is love. Not related to buying or selling. Okay. This proves that it's better to prevent someone from causing trouble, in case it's not useful. Brother, Quan Liang, wait here and I'll find someone to issue a certificate for you. Su Dongqing sat quietly in place, looking curiously at the courtyard, 3 large tiled houses, a small courtyard, and a peaceful environment. A good place to raise people. Here. Su Dongqing glanced at the certificate issued. Laugh happily. Bin, what's your relationship with the director of the canning factory? It's actually his big name. Su Dongqing looked at the thin piece of paper in her hand. The director of the cannery is my uncle. Su Dongqing didn't ask too much further. Anyway, someone can testify. He is also afraid of being reported by the people in the courtyard with red-eye disease. At that time, he won't be able to escape either. In case he gets fired, although he has a farm space, he will have other expenses besides food and drink. 150 yuan. Bin, please count it. Su Dongqing took the bicycle ticket and put it in his pocket with the issued certificate. Be careful to sail a ship of 10,000 years. It's better to keep a low profile. Su Dongqing walked out of the alley entrance. Although the cold wind blows colder, life still has its ups and downs. Wrapped around the cotton jacket on the body. Red Star Supply and Marketing Cooperative is considered the largest supply and marketing cooperative in this area, with a wide variety of products inside. Su Dongqing hesitated for a long time, but finally fell in love with a bicycle with a flying pigeon brand on its face. Abbreviation. 28-. Of course, there are 2 other brands next to it. Phoenix and Forever. However, the best-selling ones are still flying pigeons, with a relatively loud brand. Pay money and give tickets. By the way, stamp the bicycle with a steel stamp. After more than an hour of back-and-forth struggle, I finally got my hands on it. There is no other way, but this year's bicycles are almost indistinguishable from cars of later generations. The only difference may be that they require both tickets and full payment. If you take out a loan. There are no doors. Su Dongqing rode around and suddenly felt that this was a limitation of technology, or that people from this era were real. The weight of a car is hard to explain in one word. Pushing the bicycle back to the courtyard. Jia Zhang's eyes widened instantly, glaring angrily. Nima, my goodness is blind. You bastard, you have become the first person in the courtyard to buy a car. Even if you have money to buy a car, you won't help our family. Qin Huairu saw Su Dongqing's face look a bit ugly. Hurry up and bring Jia Zhang back home. Close the door. Mom, Su Dongqing's buying a car has nothing to do with us. Why do you just curse when you open your mouth? How can you maintain good relationships with others in the future? Qin Huairu complained. Qin Huairu, are you with Su Dongqing? I regret it. I just scolded him a few times. You feel so sorry. Jia Zhang picked up a feather duster and was about to throw it onto Qin Huairu. I didn't mean that. If you want someone to help our family, do you also need a good attitude? Su Dongqing bought a car, and he was just happy today. You can see later, someone else encouraged him to treat him. With your attitude, why should he treat you to dinner? Qin Huairu quickly defended. This old devout woman is becoming increasingly unreasonable. Back then, I was also blind. How could I choose such a home? If I had chosen Su Dongqing, would life have been better and better? You can also have big fish and meat every day. Why gnaw on the nest every day? The key is still not enough to eat. Jia Zhang thought for a while, and it was indeed the truth that Qin Huairu said. Buying a car is a happy occasion. As usual, we have to treat guests to dinner. Just her attitude, treat her to fart. Feeling guilty for a moment, he put away the feather duster in his hand and let out a cold snort. Sitting on the chair, curiously staring out the window. Take a look inside the courtyard, which old man is leading the way and causing Su Dongqing to bleed. Dongqing, I bought a car. Lu Haizhong suddenly crawled out of the house, curious to touch it. Su Dongqing ignored it and pushed the car directly into the backyard. Pooh, what are you proud of? Lu Haizhong pointed at Su Dongqing's back and cursed inwardly. The third master lifted the door curtain, holding a melon seed in his hand, and leisurely walked towards the bangs. How to say it? How to say what? Lu Haizhong looked at Yan Bugue with some regret. This person is not intentionally finding fault with him, is he? Which pot should not be mentioned? You didn't invite Su Dongqing to dinner. Buying a car can be considered a big deal. Yan Bugue frowned and looked at the bangs. Is this still the bangs he knows? Didn't you mention it yet? Lu Haizhong let out a sigh. For several years, he didn't say much, even if it was a general meeting of the entire hospital or just a passing ceremony. During the Chinese New Year, they would gather together to have the New Year's Eve dinner. Su Dongqing was selectively forgotten by them. What did you say earlier? Yan Bugue didn't finish the melon seeds in his hand for most of the day. I just spit a few. Install the facade. Congratulations on buying a car. But he didn't mean to talk to me, Lu Haizhong sighed. In this situation, it is impossible to borrow a car in the future. We need to find a way to beat him up. Yan Bugue patted the shoulder in the bangs and suggested. It's unlikely. You came out late just now and didn't see that old lady from the Jia family come up. She scolded Su Dongqing for not dying well, having money to buy a car and no money to help her family. Lu Haizhong said with a bitter smile. What kind of person? Buying a car is their freedom. Over the years, due to your slander, you have stirred up trouble and portrayed Su Dongqing as an unforgivable villain. Thoroughly pushed Su Dongqing to the brink of despair. The original happy event was messed up again by that devout old lady from the Jia family. Yan Bugue clenched his fingers and gritted his teeth. Maybe. Anyway, I'm not going to make such a fuss anymore. If you want to eat, you can make a fuss and I'll follow behind you to see if you can have some soup. Yan Bugue glanced at the bangs and felt that this bad old man was using him as a gun. If he had this confidence, he would still be chatting with him here, and would have already burst into Su Dongqing's house, eating and drinking spicy food. Every day there's plenty of fish and meat, and I'm not tired of it. Lu Haizhong asked about the fragrance wafting in the air. It's from Su Dongqing's family. Yan Bugue was a bit greedy. What do you say? Except for Su Dongqing, there is only one person in the courtyard who is full and the whole family is not hungry. Who would be willing to create such a mess? That's right. An old man named Yi Zhonghai held a pottery pot in his hand and leisurely took a sip of hot tea, watching Yan Bugue and Lu Haizhong whispering to each other. Seems to be planning something. I approached with some curiosity. What are you two doing here? Yan Bugue and Lu Haizhong turned around and glanced at the pretentious Yi Zhonghai. Grandpa, Su Dongqing has bought a car. What's the way to make him take the initiative to treat us to a good meal? Every day, I see that he is either a big fish and meat, or an egg and rice eater. Is his mouth craving? Yan Bugue directly bewitched. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Inviting guests to dine. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Inviting guests to dine. In fact, his thoughts on Yi Zhonghai's heart are also Menqing. This is a hypocrite. On the surface, an elderly person with high moral standards and a little bit of caution hidden in his heart, they all know that as he gets older and doesn't have a son, they want to find a godson to care for him. Previously, he had placed all his bets on the Jia family, so when dealing with things, he always leaned towards the Qin Huai-Ru family. But now, it seems that the spotlight is on the silly pillar. Xiao Jia is now a bedridden disabled person who needs someone to take care of him, so there is no follow-up on this matter, and he can only secretly take care of Qin Huai-Ru. It can also be considered as preserving a fragrant flame. Su Dongqing's words, because he had always been biased towards the Qin Huai-Ru family, there was no such thing as affection. The degree to which two people dislike each other. Lao Yi, you see Su Dongqing has already bought a car. Is there a reason for him to treat everyone to a big meal? It's been a long time since he had pork. Smelling the fragrance wafting in the air in the bangs, swallowing saliva. Yi Zhonghai's face slightly changed, and he tightly grasped the teapot in his hand. What I wanted to say ended in nothing. Forget it, if you're willing, go to your door and say it yourself. My words should not be taken by this villain. Yi Zhonghai also wants to establish a good relationship with Su Dongqing, but last time he was rejected. He is also a prominent figure in the quadrangle courtyard. As for eating meat with his salary, it is not that he cannot afford it. This is not to support a college student, and he also considers the issue of retirement and illness when he has some spare money. Don't be fooled by his usual way of helping Qin Huai-Ru, but in reality, the number of times he helps is also decreasing. He gives a little coarse grain a month, which is the limit. The real big head is still a silly pillar. What he wants is nothing but a false name. Lao Yi, this is your mistake. You are a master in our courtyard, and at the entire assembly, you are the leader. You easily let Su Dongqing go. Yan Bugue was careful about Yi Zhonghai, but he was clear. Isn't it just that you can't let go of face? How much is that worth? If we really want him to have a full meal, it can be thrown on the ground and let people step on it casually. Yi Zhonghai smiled faintly, feeling a bit tempted. If things were to happen, the neighbors living together in the courtyard would also accept this favor from Su Dongqing. As for Su Dongqing, he could only be the scapegoat for a while. If it doesn't work. That's also a rule that Su Dongqing doesn't understand. It has been passed down for so many years, and since he doesn't follow it, he will naturally be despised by others, making the neighbors in the courtyard even more disgusted. Think about it. He feels that regardless of success or failure, he will not suffer losses. After all, his original intention was to seek welfare for the neighbors of the courtyard house. No one can pick out a thorn. As for Su Dongqing's position, he has long selectively ignored it. A familiar stranger, someone who has lived in a courtyard for several years without saying more than 5 words. He cares about these things. Yan Bugue felt a little tempted when he saw Yi Zhonghai and decided to start a fire. Lao Yi, if this matter is done by someone, everyone in the yard will appreciate your friendship. If it can be done, it can also ease the conflict between the Jia family and Su Dongqing, allowing Su Dongqing to better integrate into the big family. In this way, your elderly care issue will also have an additional choice. A towering building rises from the ground, and if he really convinces Su Dongqing to treat him to a meal, it does indicate that there is a chance to pry Su Dongqing's heart. I am showing off and asking for warmth. It's also possible. He is also a bit worried about silly Zhu's condition now. Qin Huai-Ru, the youngest daughter-in-law of the Jia family, was holding on to her tightly. She couldn't eat enough and wanted to help the Qin Huai-Ru family. Isn't this a fool? Xiaojia is now bedridden and not dead. With such enthusiasm, isn't it clear that he is interested in Qin Huai-Ru? The people in the courtyard, however, were too embarrassed to speak out clearly. It's embarrassing. If Xiaojia died, it would be easier to handle. Asking for warmth and comfort, seeing people's hearts over time, it is impossible for the two of them to live together. He looked at Qin Huai-Ru and also liked her. She was hardworking. If the two of them were to provide for her retirement, the big stone hanging over her would be completely shattered. Hesitate for a moment. Okay, I'll give it a try and see if I can persuade him. However, if you come with me too, it might have some weight. Okay, Lu Haizhong nodded with Yen Bugui. With the shrewdness of the two of them, they naturally knew Yi Zhonghai's careful thinking of losing face and losing face together. The Jia family, 5 people curled up in a somewhat crowded house. It's gloomy like the sea. Mom, you said we reported that Su Dongqing's bicycle came from an incorrect route. How about that? The bedridden old Jia looked up at Jia Zhang's wrinkled old face. Let's talk later, Qin Huairu hesitated. You bereaved star, are you determined to favor Su Dongqing and regret marrying into our Jia family? The bedridden old Jia suddenly looked grim, wanting to stand up and slap her. Struggling for a long time, she reluctantly picked up a pillow and threw it onto Qin Huairu. I didn't mean that. Just now, I saw 3 masters walking towards the backyard, probably discussing a meal with Su Dongqing. If you report him at this time and eat something else, it will also lead to complaints from other people in the courtyard. That's also the reason. Let him go for now. After eating and drinking enough, report him. Zhang stood up instantly. He. Qin Huairu looked at the twisted old Jia and the devout old lady, and instantly felt like a simple little white rabbit. Why don't you like it? Zhang's feather duster in his hand, poised for action. It's not unwillingness. If it were to be reported, it would put Su Dongqing to death. Not only would he lose his job at the steel rolling mill, but he also hates our family. In the future, how can we get along in the same yard? If it's fake, it will be extremely difficult to take some food from Su Dongqing's hands in the future. After all, it's already like this, and they will sympathize with our family. Pooh. It's really even better. He's a broken-down household without a job, and he can't even eat enough himself. How can he help our family? The only concern is that it's fake, and we will also be implicated. Su Dongqing can live a worry-free life, so we will suffer. Reporting a fake case, what the consequences are. You don't need me to say, you also know how the people in the yard will see us in the future. The last second we were eating together, the next second we were stabbing each other in the back. In the future, if we want to borrow food from others, they will also be on guard against us. Qin Huairu paused and analyzed it. Let the 2 ferocious people splash a basin of cold water in an instant. I'm not willing to let him go like this. The bedridden old Jia gritted his teeth and looked out the window into the brightly lit courtyard. It belongs to his family and is particularly depressed. Huairu, why don't you encourage silly Zhu? Didn't he lose half a month's salary yesterday because of Su Dongqing? Jia Zhang suddenly whispered to Yen. Spit out one's own fox tail. The strategy of killing 2 birds with 1 stone was instantly blurted out. If things happen, then silly Zhu can retaliate because of Su Dongqing's loss of half a month. If it fails, it doesn't matter. It's silly Zhu who reported it, not their family. You can also cut off silly Zhu's lecherous heart. Kill 2 birds with 1 stone, why not do it? Qin Huairu looked at the somewhat cunning old lady and hesitated for a moment. Have you ever considered that if silly Zhu were to be shut down due to our instigation, there would be no one to support our family anymore? With my monthly salary of 18.5 yuan, I can't support us as a whole. If you're asked to do it, you can do it. Where did all this nonsense come from? It's just that you should stir up the silly pillar a little beside you, not that you're doing it. What's the relationship between the silly pillar and you? The blood-red old Jia stared at Qin Huairu with anger. He said you two have nothing to do with each other, hiding your ears and stealing the bell. Do you really want him to be covered in green oil on his head? Jia Zhang hesitated for a moment. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Impossible. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Impossible. If you just show a little bit of meaning, silly Zhu should understand and be manipulated by you. As for the future, if my mother knows your methods, she shouldn't let silly Zhu, this fat sheep, run away. What do you think? Qin Huairu gave a bitter smile. Nodding helplessly. Eating people without vomiting bones. At Su Dongqing's doorstep, 3 old men looked at Su Dongqing sneakily eating pork chops and pork belly, muttering with a hint of disgust. The meat on these pork ribs is a bit scarce. Greedy, they instantly wanted to pick up the pork ribs that were thrown on the table and nibble on them for a while. A despicable thing. Su Dongqing heard the sound and glanced outside. 3 sneaky figures. Getting up, just as he was about to pull up the door curtain, 3 bad old men came together, but nothing good happened. That's Su Dongqing, let me discuss something with you. Yi Zhonghai quickly spoke up. Discuss with a ghost. Su Dongqing has very little contact with them. Throughout the year, he can't say 5 words. There is something to discuss, so he's not being punished. I dug out my ears. Just pretend not to hear. Su Dongqing turned around and sat on a chair, enjoying herself. The sound of knocking on the door was incessant. It's a bit annoying. Su Dongqing opened the door and looked at the 3 gentlemen at the door, wanting to go in and sit down. He stopped directly at the door. 3 gentlemen, if you have anything, just say it at the door and don't disturb me for dinner. How to speak. Don't you know how to respect the old and love the young? Yi Zhonghai's face turned pale. To say something I don't like to hear, you 3 are really not a good person in front of me. Anyway, it's already like this and there's no interaction. The worst outcome is where else we can go. Yan Bugue quickly came out to make a comeback. Su Dongqing, I heard you bought a car. Well, I bought it. Locked in the house next to me, why do you think about borrowing a car? No. Yan Bugue's face darkened, and before he could speak, he scolded him with embarrassment. Although he also had such caution, he shouldn't just say it like this. What a shame. It's not about borrowing a car, Yan Bugue said, shifting the topic. I'm not borrowing a car, what else is there to do? Su Dongqing couldn't understand what the 3 bad old men were holding back. Buying a car is a big deal. Look at the neighbors, should we treat them to a meal? Yi Zhonghai blurted out his old face and said. Treat guests to a meal. Su Dongqing frowned. Glancing around. They usually exclude him and don't hesitate to say a word. It turns out they are waiting for him here. Does it go with you? They have hated him for not dying in these years. A few years ago, they even held a meeting in front of him and wanted to expel him from the courtyard. If it weren't for this, the street office wouldn't have agreed. His 2 large tiled houses have long been occupied by them. There is still face to eat. Forget it, we don't have any friendship. In the courtyard, there's one after another, and they're not really good people. They treat us to dinner, and you're not worthy. Where do you come from and where do you go back? Maintaining a situation of no communication is quite good, I think. Su Dongqing let out a snap. Close the door and insert the latch inside. Outside, the 3 people looked at each other. This Su Dongqing is really not something, he doesn't know what to do. Lu Haizhong angrily glanced at the window blocked by the door curtain. What should we do next? Take the initiative to step down for him. If we don't come down ourselves, we will naturally not give him good fruit to eat. Yi Zhonghai firmly grasped the teapot in his hand. I want to smash the glass, but upon reflection, I still feel a bit reluctant. 3 ill-intentioned gentlemen glanced at each other. I came up with a plan. Grandpa, have you ever issued bicycle tickets to Su Dongqing in your factory? Yan Bugue looked back with ill intentions, his view blocked by the curtains. Pooh. The leaders in the factory don't even have enough points. How could they send a 3rd-level fitter? As a 9th-level fitter, I haven't even left a single one behind. Where did he get this one from? Regarding the money, I'm not worried that he stole it. But this bicycle ticket is a bit hard to find. Yan Bugue chuckled. The origin of Su Dongqing's bicycle ticket is unknown. That's easy to handle. I'll report him directly. If he can't bear it anymore, it's best to get rid of his position at the steel rolling mill, so that my son can also take it on. Lu Haizhong patted his plump belly and said rhythmically. Yan Bugue and Yi Zhonghai exchanged a glance. Fool. There is no official fate, but there is an addiction to being an official. At this level, even a team leader cannot play well. What's wrong, can't we? Lu Haizhong's face changed slightly. We are highly respected, how can we personally do the actions of these villains? Yan Bugue patted Lu Haizhong's shoulder. If we don't take action, then who can we rely on? There is some confusion in the bangs. It's naturally a grand meeting of the entire courtyard. If he is willing to admit his mistake, he will naturally be manipulated by us in the future. If he refuses, he will be directly arrested by the street office. Not only will he lose his job at the steel rolling mill, but we can also take the opportunity to drive him out of the courtyard. Yi Zhonghai gritted his teeth. If it's not for my use, then get lost. Judging from Su Dongqing's attitude and pension problems, I can't count on him anymore. Rather than let him become a rat's dung and spoil the whole pot of porridge, I'd rather be blind and not upset. I can also take the opportunity to avenge silly Column for yesterday's revenge. This foolish pillar is not grateful to him. Su Dongqing eats delicious food. In the courtyard, figures flicker. Neighbors have already prepared benches, knocking melon seeds, and looking like they are watching a play. Anyway, it has nothing to do with themselves, and they have long been dissatisfied with Su Dongqing. Hiding alone in the room, eating and drinking spicy food. I don't know how to help these families, but so far I haven't eaten any meat from his family and gained any benefits. I can't eat coarse grains every day because of the delicious meat. Silly pillar, you call Su Dongqing out of the room. After all, this is a general meeting of the entire hospital. Without anyone, we cannot miss him. Yi Zhonghai took a sip of tea and said leisurely. Deep gaze, occasionally looking in the direction of the Jia family. If the person who cannot hold her breath the most is Jia Zhang, it would be best if she came forward and exposed Su Dongqing's hypocritical face. Qin Huairu looked curiously at Yi Zhonghai. Pulling Raja Zhang's hand, he said, Mom, tonight, don't be a scapegoat. Look at this posture, it's a dissatisfaction with Su Dongqing. The dinner party has come to an end. Jia Zhang glanced around and nodded. Only she knows her true thoughts. Glancing at Qin Huairu. I knew you couldn't forget Su Dongqing and regretted marrying into our Jia family. Humph, it could be as you wish. Not only did I drive Su Dongqing out of the courtyard, even silly Zhu couldn't escape, which means silly Zhu still has some use now. If it weren't for it, she would have driven silly Zhu away long ago. Every time she saw you two sneaking around, she felt angry in her heart. Su Dongqing sat casually on the side, holding a small saddle, surrounded by an empty space without a single person. Back against that crooked-necked tree. Silly Zhu sat attentively beside Qin Huairu. Squeeze your brows and eyes. Lick the dog. Lick until the end with nothing. Yi Zhonghai glanced around and everyone arrived. The key is that the protagonist to criticize tonight, Su Dongqing, has also arrived, so we can start. The theme of our courtyard today is about Su Dongqing's bike of unknown origin. There may be a thief in our courtyard. Yi Zhonghai made a heartbroken expression, which puzzled Su Dongqing. Good acting skills. Only limited to this. Su Dongqing didn't say much. Jia Zhang immediately jumped out and cursed, saying, Master, what you're saying is reasonable. Some people, even if they eat delicious food and drink spicy food alone, don't care about their neighbors. Our family is still eating meatballs, and Xiaobachuan is starving and losing weight. He complains about eating meat every day. Cough, cough, end of this chapter.